Gupta. I'm delighted that Lobsang Sangay has joined me. He's, of course, the former president of the Tibetan Central Administration in exile. Dr. Sangay, of course, is also a visiting fellow at Harvard University and is renowned as an expert on Tibetan matters and Himalayan matters. I am delighted to welcome Dr. Sangay to this program on Global Order. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me to your show.
I want to jump in and begin straight away talking about what you see the current position and the tussle between the Tibetan Central Administration and the Chinese authorities to be on the issue of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's reincarnation, which is one of the biggest topics on the subject that's been discussed around the world. If you could lay out that entire, sort of landscape for us for a moment.
Essentially, Tibetans and Buddhists around the world, we want to find the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama. For us, the spiritual element is very important. That's the foundation of Tibetan civilization, Tibetan identity, Tibetan nation, and His Holiness Dalai Lama sits at the core of this, civilization and identity. Now, Chinese government is essentially, they are they're not interested in reincarnation of, for that matter, spirituality. They want to control the office. So they want to influence the office. They want the next puppet. So that is their main interest. And we are saying, you have no business. You are atheists, you are communists, you don't believe in religion. And then, it's none of your business. And ultimately, it is for His Holiness Dalai Lama to decide. And we are very grateful. His Holiness Dalai Lama has decided that reincarnation will continue. Institution of Dalai Lama will continue. And most importantly, he has decided to be born outside of China in the free world. So that deprives the Chinese government of any angle to play a role.
A little bit about, even though this has been going on for a long time, ever since His Holiness left Tibet as a boy, this has been going on for a long time. This issue has particularly heated up, in the recent few years, particularly when conversation about the reincarnation of His Holiness the Dalai Lama has, gathered pace, and there's been more conversation about that, but also because Chinese geopolitics has acquired new strength. And now, talk to us a little bit about your understanding of what's happening today in Tibet and how you see what's going on in Tibet.
You're right. With the expansionist design of the Chinese empire, with the assertion of the empire, what they are looking for is geopolitically, if they have the Dalai Lama, not only they want to use him to control Tibetans, but also we should know for India, the whole of Himalayan belt, there are Buddhists, and then many of them follow and regard His Holiness Dalai Lama as their spiritual guru. And they want to use that to influence the Himalayan region and inside India as well. And up north in Mongolia and outer Mongolia, and then Burят and Tuba, there are so many, three Russian republics are also Buddhist, right? So they want to use religion to gain control and expand their desire. So this is, what is their plan, and they're trying to play with it.
Talk a little bit about the ramifications of this plan. A lot of people, including me, have written about this entire. The Chinese seems to be competing in a sense, even though, of course, communist by its very ideological nature is about atheism. In recent years, it seems like the Chinese Communist Party wants to, in a sense, control global Buddhism and global Buddhist narratives. So, in a sense, it's competing, in a very strange way for some sort of geopolitical control on Buddhist narratives around the world. How do you see this? Why do you think this has come about? And where do you think this is going?
You're right. China wants to expand both the hard power and soft power. Militarily, economically, politically, you can clearly see in all the neighboring countries of India, in Nepal, they're intruding, and Pakistan, they have formed a all-weather ally, and that they are also intruding in Bangladesh and Maldives and Sri Lanka. So India is surrounded by neighbors Actually, they all were friendly towards India for a long time. Since the Chinese interference, they all have, at least some elements in neighboring countries have become even hostile to India. So that is their desire. Ultimately, they want to be number one in the world. They are competing with America, but they want to be number one of the region of Asia. And they're making sure that potential number two, which India is, they want to constrain and limit India. So it's part of this grand strategy. And then in the soft power, by having a role to play in the selection reincarnation of the Dalai Lama, or for that matter, any lamas, they want to assert their control over Buddhist countries in Southeast Asia and South Asia, even in East Asia, like Korea, Singapore, and Japan. Now, what is so disturbing is that actually, Buddha was enlightened in India and has all the sacred places except for Lumbini are in India. So Buddhism is a low-hanging fruit for India. It's very easy for India to, assert its role, historical role, because Nalanda was in India, Taxila, all the great Buddhist universities were in India, and Buddhism spread from India across the world. Now, China at the moment they have upper hand. It's a fact. World Buddhist Congress, as you mentioned, is the oldest Buddhist organization. It's essentially controlled by the Chinese. They have every 2 or 3 years, they have this mega event in China. All the Buddhist leaders from Southeast Asia, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, Burma, they all go to China. They sing praises of China, saying that China supports Buddhism. It's just an irony. India should be playing a major role, and it's very easy to play a major role, and then all these Buddhist countries will regard India as a natural leader on Buddhism and soft power. So Chinese government is using everything possible, hard power, soft power, including religion, which they dispute. As an irony, it's just something very odd and weird.
It is very odd and weird because, on one hand, communism has always been about wiping out anything to do with religion. But as far as geopolitical control of a religion is concerned, the Chinese are, really effectively fighting to take control of the global narrative of Buddhism. Of course, there is more happening in India also on this, and I wonder how you see that. Now, India also has a global event on Buddhism every year. The Honorable Prime Minister has attended it, has spoken in it. Of course, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has been in it. The statues of Kushak Bakula, the great Buddhist teacher from India, has been sent by the Indian government to different parts of the world, including to Central Asia. The Buddha relics have traveled more frequently to different parts of Central and Southeast Asia. India is also trying to, in a sense, push back and re-establish the fact that, as you said, really that Buddhism came from India. How do you see India's work in this dimension, especially in the last 2, 3 years? Do you think it's being able to balance out the Chinese moves to a degree?
Not yet, not yet. It's still way to go. Having said that, China has been working on it for last 30, 40 years. And what India has initiated, and then especially last 5 years, had jumped on it, and definitely India has made a mark, and Buddhist leaders have also started coming to India, and then IBC, International Buddhist Confederation is playing a very important role in facilitating and coordinating, Buddhist related activities and, relationship with all the Buddhist countries. So that's remarkable. And you mentioned also Buddha's relic. It happened in Thailand. India took its Buddha's relic. Millions of people came out because they see Buddha's relic from India as original, authentic. It's from the land of Buddhism, right? China also, to compete with India a year later, brought a Buddha's relic. How many people attended? Actually, not even a 10% of people of Thailand attended, who actually attended, India's Buddha's relic. So actually India has an upper hand. So, they're making efforts, which is remarkable. And then more needs to be done. And soon, I think, Buddhism will prevail and truth will prevail. So interestingly, in historical context, Communist Party of China came to power by saying they climbed or they destroyed 3 mountains: feudalism, right? And One is Kuomintang, and one is capitalism. Feudalism includes Confucianism and Buddhism and everything, all the traditional aspect of things. They claim to have destroyed it. Then the communism came. So communism is a victory prevailed over after the destruction of feudalism. So like you said, even in Tibet, 98% of monasteries and nunneries were destroyed. In China too, 90% of cultural and religious institutions were destroyed, demolished, or shut down. So that is their claim and the backbone on which Communist Party, gained its power. Yet they're saying now we should be leader on religion and cultural and spiritual aspect as well. So in broad daylight, they are doing one thing and saying another thing. Yet many people seem to buy it. So we need to expose this double standard and put proper historical context so that the people get to know what Chinese government and Communist Party is capable of.
Agni, I want to ask you a question, on this subject derived from something His Holiness the Dalai Lama had said once, that even though, the Chinese Communist Party has spent all its time over the last many years, in a sense, denigrating him and claiming that he's an enemy of their people and so on and so forth, actually interest and reverence for His Holiness within China has never been greater. I want you to explain to our viewers what that really means, how this is panned out, and what that really means for Chinese society.
Now, I remember reading an article in Time magazine, I think. They were quoting a woman who was a daughter of a very prominent Chinese leader. And she has some affinity towards Buddhism as well. She said, Chinese leaders just don't understand how come His Holiness Dalai Lama, dressed simply as a monk, wearing barter chapel and carrying a simple bag, and travels around the world and gets thousands and thousands of people who follow him, who fill stadiums. Chinese government simply just don't get it because they're very materialistic oriented. They just don't understand the value of religion. Number two, I think it was Tao Ziyang was a reformist leader at one time, and he fell out of favor and he was deposed. And then after his death, I think the whole Tiananmen Square protest happened, right? I think it's Hu Huiyabang. But when Tao Ziyang, the party secretary general of Communist Party, he died. Just before he died, what he did, he sent a request through his family members to His Holiness Dalai Lama to pray for him. And Tao Ziyang, just before he died, can you imagine a Secretary General of the Communist Party of China, just before he dies, he's asking whether His Holiness Dalai Lama is mentioning my name and praying for me. So we're talking about top leader, okay? Similarly, I have also met, some Chinese official who said that in Zhongnanhai, there's the leadership compound of China. There, every second house has a portrait of Dalai Lama. So no matter how much they try to destroy, 98% of monasteries and nunneries were destroyed in Tibet. But Tibetans, when given an opportunity, rebuild them. They continue to destroy. Even today, they are destroying monasteries, demolishing statue of Buddha and Padmasambhava. But Tibetans keep building. It's also all over China. Even in the compounds of the Chinese leadership, portrait of Dalai Lama and Buddhas have entered. So that's the power of Buddhism.
Fascinating. Do you think, as far as the Chinese Communist Party is concerned, that they are getting more and more worried about this because this has ramifications even within Chinese society, right? I mean, something is going on even within Chinese society. Like you're saying, this used to be a society in the last 20, 30 years that is, as it has become more and more wealthy, has seen very extreme, almost American levels of excesses of materialism, right? And yet something else is also coming into play. Perhaps the old Chinese ethos, perhaps the old sort of, spirituality, its religious consciousness is emerging from somewhere. How do you see this, number one, and how do you see this connected to the life and the work of His Holiness?
I think we believe in Hinduism and Buddhism, generally in spirituality, we say the material gain is not enough to satisfy you or quench your thirst as a human being, ultimately, right? So you need more than that. Your values, your spirituality, that sense of equanimity to have more peaceful, more happy life, right? So that is the power. So, for example, whether I should say it or not, very popular Chinese actor called Jet Li. Recently he said that he was a very famous actor in Japan, in China, and then people say, "You're Jet Li, you're so popular," and he was not happy with it. He says, "I should be more popular outside." Then he acted on Asia-related movies. Then he became popular in Asia. Then he was still not satisfied. Then he said, "I should do more. I should get into Hollywood." And Hollywood he went and he acted and he became popular in Hollywood also. But still he was not happy with it. He got the fame, he got the wealth, everything. And he said, spirituality is something I want and I come back. He's a practicing Tibetan Buddhist student, Jet Li, and he's quoted as saying that. So can you imagine a Chinese guy who achieved everything one could ask for? Name, fame, wealth, everything. Now he goes from monastery to monastery, meet one Rinpoche Lama after Lama, seeking, uh, the awareness, seeking, I don't want to say enlightenment, that's too high a word, but that's what he says, peace of mind I got after coming to Tibetan monasteries. So that means there's so many celebrities in China, right? They've achieved everything. And many of them, go and meet with Tibetan Buddhist leaders and seek their peace of mind.
Fascinating. Talk to me a little bit about the scenario, post the 14th Dalai Lama. How do you see that scenario pan out? Because as we began by saying, there is going to be quite a fierce contestation. Now, I know His Holiness has said, and, as a spiritual master, of course, his words have great value, that he will be around for a long time now, maybe another decade, maybe more. But, at some point, there will be space for a 15th Dalai Lama. Now, at that place, there's going to be a lot of contestation. And I wonder, you as one of the most prominent Tibetan leaders, how do you see that pan out?
Now, actually, there is no contestation at a spiritual level, at a belief level, right? Tibetans will look at His Holiness Dalai Lama for direction, and he has given a direction that he won't be born in China, he will be born outside of China. That means the one born outside of China is the real Dalai Lama. And then he will authorize a region or regency, a monk or group of monks to take over the leadership role in search and finding of the next Dalai Lama. And because they are authorized by His Holiness Dalai Lama, we will trust that group or region or regency, right? And they will do the 800 years old tradition of going and finding reincarnated lamas. And if you look at all 14 Dalai Lamas, we have been quite good. So we will follow the tradition, we will go ahead and do it. And then for Tibetans in Tibet, Mongolia, you just name it, Russia, around the world, that is the authentic Dalai Lama. Now, Chinese will come with a fake Dalai Lama, right? A fake Lama. And fake is fake. If you read the history of Vatican, there have been few fake popes as well. But later they were just deleted from the lines of pope. So sometimes they do try, but it will not work. So in terms of politics and geopolitics, by sheer muscle, Chinese government try to impose a Dalai Lama, but that will be a fake one, because religion ultimately is matter of faith. It has to come from within. You can't show axe and gun and make people follow you. You simply can't. So in that sense, we are not worried because guru is guru and chelas will follow that genuine guru, but they will try to interfere, they will try to impose on us, but that will not work. So from narrative point of view, we must create awareness and inform all the Southeast Asian countries and Buddhist countries that they should be alert and aware, because it has major ramification. Not only the Chinese government wants to control the office of the Dalai Lama and influence Himalayan region, they will try to influence Southeast Asian countries as well. Because if you let them select the Dalai Lama, what stops them from saying, hey, Shankaracharya, should also be influenced by them? Clearly, how Chinese are very tactful. This is what we should be, careful about. They will say, this Shankaracharya cannot come to China because he speaks against China. This Shankaracharya can come to China because he speaks in praise of China. This Shankaracharya cannot come to China because he is really religious, he is really pure, he is pro-India. So this is how they will influence even in India. Now you might believe this is too far-fetched. It's happening already. Those who are born and brought up in Arunachal Pradesh, they don't need visa to go to China because China said they are from South Tibet and they can enter. They're returning home, which is an odd, you know. And then also in Xinjiang area, Chinese are already appointing imams and dismissing imams as they like. They have a deal with Vatican, where Chinese Communist Party appoints the bishop, and Vatican certifies them as real bishops. All over China, the bishops of Vatican are selected by Communist Party, and Vatican has agreed to that agreement, right? To that, to that arrangement. So now, if they're already appointing bishops, what stops them from appointing a cardinal? Then the Pope. What if they're already appointing imams? What stops them from doing more? So if they appoint lamas, whatever Shankaracharya. So this has a major ramification among all those people who believe in faith.
I want to ask you a little bit about this whole golden urn thing that the Chinese talk about, in contestation to the Gandang Foden Trust, which was created by His Holiness as the rightful institution to, in a sense, manage the reincarnation process. But the Chinese say that they have a much older process, which is the right way, which involves this urn and selection from this urn and so on and so forth. Talk to me a little bit about this entire issue.
It happened during Qing Dynasty. There was an emperor who actually believed himself to be a Buddhist. Okay, because if you go check his tomb, 30,000 characters, all in Sanskrit and Tibetan, not a word of Chinese or Manchu and or any other languages, because he thought he was a Buddhist, which is a good thing. But he took it too far. But he thought among all the Buddhas, he was the greatest Buddha. So there are the 8 portraits of Buddhas, and he's in the middle of it, right? The Changlong Emperor. So he also said when the Dalai Lamas and Lamas are selected, his portrait should be there, and then there will be a golden urn through which the next Lama should be selected. So it's a salutation to him because he thinks he is the greatest of all the Buddhas. So he is a Buddhist, which is good. Again, it's odd that he had so much ego that he thought he was the greatest of all Buddhas. Now, first thing, even the Chinese, when they use golden urn, they didn't put portrait of, Changlong, so they disregarded him. Tibetans did it in, Hasa, in front of Tibetan statue of Buddha, right? That's number one. Number two, the reason that they gave was that, if you use golden urn, it will remove corruption and abuses of power. Because yes, in reincarnation process, there have been abuses. Sometimes influential family will, put their son as a reincarnated Lama, or rich people will try to do that. But we have our own way of cleaning up the system. Because if you're authentic Lama, you get followers. If you abuse the system, you lose followers. So we have some great lamas and reincarnation. But then once they're abused, followers will not follow them, and that lama also disappears. So this is a very democratic, transparent way of selecting and cleaning up the system. Now, Chinese government says through golden urn, you'll clean up the system, there will be no corruption. But once golden urn came, Chinese ambans, they were the ambassador and officials in Tibet, they asked bribes after bribes after bribes to select lamas. So it was a corrupt system. Even now, there's something called Order Number 5 in China. Through that, they try to select lamas. Again, it's reported, widely reported. They accept envelopes, red envelopes are red envelopes to select the process. So the very purpose of Golden Urn was to prevent corruption, but it has brought more corruption historically, even now. So in that sense, Golden Urn is useless. And the symbol of Changlong as the center of all the Buddhas is also useless. So this is, and the system that they try to impose, and it has failed. Dalai Lama never used selection of 13 Dalai Lama, never used golden urn. 14 Dalai Lama never used golden urn. So we won't be using it. We don't need it.
On that note, thank you very much, Dr. Sangay, for going through all these myriad explanations on what's really going to happen with the next reincarnation of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the bigger Tibetan question. I thank you very much for your time. And of course, like you and many other admirers around the world, we join in saying that may His Holiness have a very, very long life and be with us for a long time to bless us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Good to be on your show, and we will keep marching forward.